Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Well, good evening, and thank you all so much for joining Market Street Talent's 14th annual Twice a Year Women in Technology event. So, I'm very lucky to know most of you here tonight, and I'm so grateful to see the room filled with so many professionals, leaders, and advocates for women in technology. For those who don't know me, my name is Kelsey Nicholas, and I'm the managing director of Market Street Talent. Market Street is a woman-founded, women-led, and employee-owned staffing and consulting firm right here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We focus on IT and digital marketing. For over 16 years, our mission has been to create opportunities, build community, and spark meaningful connections, not just between people and talent, not just between companies and talent, but between the people who inspire one another to grow. I would like to kick off tonight by getting a show of hands. Who here is joining us that is currently looking for a new opportunity? If you could raise your hand. Awesome. And who here is joining us that is hiring or managing teams? Perfect. Nice. Awesome. We have a nice mix, and there'll be plenty more opportunity for networking afterwards. These Women in Tech events hold such a special place in our heart exactly for that reason. We love bringing people together to connect and support one another through all phases of our careers. Tonight, we celebrate the human side of technology, the stories, the collaboration, the mentorship, all the key skills that you don't see on a resume, but that truly makes teams and organizations thrive. On that note, I would love to give a huge thanks to our talented and bright committee of women who poured their heart and soul into making tonight happen. Marie Rapucci, Liz Biddle, I actually know where Liz is, and our founder and CEO, Jennifer Gray. Also, a big thank you in order to the 100 Club for hosting us every single fall. We absolutely love this location. I need a vacation. And to our wonderful sponsors, first, the Diversity Workforce Coalition, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but whose mission is to empower diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplaces through leadership and resources. Our second is Bangor Savings Bank, and we do have the opportunity of a ton of members joining us tonight, which we're so thankful for. And I would like to invite Candace Miller up quickly to share a few words. Awesome.
Hey everyone, I'm Candace Miller with Business Banking, New Hampshire market leader for business Bangor Savings Bank, and I just want to say thank you and what a great turnout. I was privileged enough to be asked tonight to just say a couple little words about what this event means to us, and basically, I'm privileged here to be representing Bangor Savings Bank. I'm looking forward to tonight's panel on human skills and how it impacts automated workplace, which is a near and dear topic to my heart. As we all know, technical skills build solutions, but soft skills like empathy, communication, adaptability build trust, teams, and long-term success. Bangor Savings Bank is committed to cultivating these strengths in our workplace, and we loved to work with companies such as these nonprofits and other companies that have the same values. So thank you for our time tonight, and really looking forward to learning more. And I think I'm just going to stand out in the back because it looks like it's such a full place that there's no more seats. So what a great turnout. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you so much, Candace. We really appreciate the continued support and partnership. Just a few housekeeping items for our virtual attendees. So we do have another 60 plus joining us online, which is awesome. We will be turning off your camera and mics for bandwidth and audio quality purposes. The chat feature is located at the top banner of your screen, so please use it freely throughout the event for questions, comments, and to connect with fellow participants. When it comes time for the Q&A, we will be reading your questions out loud, so please ask away. And lastly, for those who did join us on site, please don't forget to drop your business card in the bin at the front of the room. At the end, we will be drawing 2 names to receive gift cards to local Portsmouth businesses. So awesome. Now, this year's theme, the new power of soft skills in a tech world. It couldn't be more timely. As AI and automation transforms industries, technical skills alone aren't enough. I feel like Candace and I work together in writing ours because I also have empathy, adaptability, and communication, like you said, are the key skills that are going to help professionals stand out. AI isn't here to replace us, it's here to collaborate with us. But in order to do so effectively, humans need the soft skills to guide, audit, and interpret technology thoughtfully. Tonight, we're joined by an incredible panel of women who will unpack what the future of work demands and will also help us learn the key human skills that machines can't replicate. No matter what brought you here tonight, I hope you leave with some new insights, fresh perspective, and hopefully a new connection or two. Now, I would love to invite our wonderful moderator, Crystal Hicks, to share a brief introduction about herself and kick off the conversation. Crystal, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I was actually in the audience last year and was so inspired by this event that I was thrilled to get the invitation to come moderate. My name's Crystal Hicks. My company is called Job Talk. I'm a career strategist. Jobs have been my job for about 17 years. And so as many of you in here, if you've also been working for that long, you have also seen the transformation that technology has gone through and the impact that it has had on the teams that we work in. And if you work in what I would say is if you work in tech, but also if you work in a technical function, you feel this every day. And I think that this topic is so salient. And I know that when I'm working with my clients who are typically job seekers in transition, whether it is a woman in technology who's kind of saying like, I cannot for the life of me figure out how to grow my career in this company when I'm surrounded by people who don't have the soft skills that I need them to have, that I have. I hear it from the candidate side. I also work with organizations that are looking to build more equity into their hiring process and streamline what they're doing as far as hiring goes. And it is constantly a theme of, yes, we need somebody with really strong hard skills, but man, they have to be collaborative, and man, that communication has to be there. And that the emphasis on those soft skills it's always been there, but I just feel like it means something so different now. And we look at the papers and we see the layoffs that are occurring and AI and this whole conversation that we're having. So I just really applaud Market Street and the team and everyone for choosing this topic because I think it's so salient, and this panel is phenomenal. So enough about me. I definitely want to get into the mix. I have the questions all on my phone, so I'm not texting or scrolling Instagram here. I am absolutely on work mode here. If you just see my cat, that's the screensaver, so I'm not apologizing for her. But let's get into our panelists. So Deb, Kathy, Laura, Deb, we'll start with you. Give us an introduction. How long have you been in the space? How might people know you? And we'll just go right down the panel.
Hello, really glad to be here and glad you're here too. I am in might say conventionally, the learning and development space. And what does that really mean? And at the core, it's always about how can we amplify and magnify humanity, let people tap into who they are and be completely who they are in an organization. So I work with organizations who care about that. So if they want to achieve their goals, and they're really concerned with being people-centric at the same time, that they will actually take the time to invest and grow people. So for 41 years, I've been in this space. Love it. About 8.5 of those years, I had the opportunity to work inside 3 global tech firms and learn a lot about implementations, software implementation, tech. And I bring that up because it's about change. And we always need to take a look at the impact it has on the stakeholders. So it's always about, how are people feeling about this? Are you keeping them attached to the change decision? Do they know what's going to happen to them? So I show up to help organizations build and elevate the capability, human capability in people so that they can make the positive changes in the world that they need to. And that may be leadership, communication, presentation skills, leadership, presence, influence, and of course, How do we tap into our emotional intelligence? And how can we do all of our work ethically, relationally? I don't know if I just made that word up, and strategically.
I know the irony, right?
How about now? Yeah. All right, cool. My name is Kathy Skirbo. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at a nonprofit membership association located over at Pease. We have about 95,000 members, and we support privacy, cybersecurity law, and AI governance professionals. And we do everything from learning, training, certifications, membership, as I mentioned, events. We have more news than any other privacy organization in the world. So we're a global organization, 270-ish employees strong. We have like 3,000-ish volunteers that help us every single day. It's amazing, the contributions that we get from our memberships in our community. I have been, I've been the COO for 2 years at the IAPP. Before that, I was the first CIO at the IAPP. So I've been there almost 7 years. Prior to that, I was in huge, large corporations, Liberty Mutual and John Hancock and Mercer, which is a benefits consulting firm. So I have had a long tech career, and pretty much anything that you do in tech, I have done. I started in infrastructure, building networks. I moved into setting up printers, computers, servers. I was a certified Microsoft professional at one point in my days. I then moved into application development, doing maintenance, development. I moved into services, so I supported tech learning, procurement, financials, entry-level learning programs, communications. Tech communications was actually one of my favorite things that we did. I have run PMOs. I have broken down organizations. I have built organizations around tech, but the favorite part that I love about my job right now is I get to be the business person, that sort of business architect that helps our tech team really drive solutions for our organization. So I'm excited about this journey, this conversation tonight. My secret sauce has always kind of been the EQ side of things. I have been in as I mentioned in my career, actually probably about 38 years now, mostly tech. And I never thought I was very good at tech. So, and I've moved up to a pretty high level in tech. So a lot of it is, that understanding the business problem, understanding how to translate and influence, get people to give up money in order to invest. That's huge. And so for me, this is sort of near and dear to my heart, this whole topic. And there's people from Liberty and IAPP in the audience here tonight, which means a ton to me. So they'll keep me honest too, by the way. So that's me.
Hi, I'm Laura Kender. I'm a polymer process engineer at a company called Corning Life Sciences. Polymers are basically just plastic. Prior to that, I've been there for 3 years, and prior to that, I was at Converse as an engineer, the footwear company. So even though I've only been in the industry for like 8 or so years, I've already seen so much of how technology has been growing just in like the past decade. Like even right now, some of our machines, the machine learning and the AI involved in those softwares are running faster than the motors can keep up. And it just puts in perspective as an engineer how technology is growing so much, but these machines can't do the innovation and the problem solving as well as some humans can. Even though they can run the motors, they can't, if there's a problem, they could tell you there's a problem with the machine, but they might not be able to diagnose it and get their hands in it and figure out what's actually happening with the machine. So I love this topic because it relates a lot to my job in the world that I'm in right now and how important soft skills are, even if you're in the office or virtual, how important the human connection is and how humans are needed to keep this world alive.
Literally. Awesome. Thank you so much. So throughout our discussion, we will save about 15 minutes at the end for questions. If you have a burning question, though, related to something salient that someone is saying, feel free to throw your hand up. We'll get there if we can. But just know that we did carve out time at the end. So let's jump into it. All right. So in our pre-call, we had discussed how hard versus soft skills are not necessarily harder versus easier skills. And I think that's a really important distinction. Can you think of a time when you or someone you've worked with demonstrated both hard or soft and soft skills in a way that really set them apart? And secondly, I would say, do you think there are certain technical roles or seniority levels where soft skills have been more or equally as valuable as someone's technical skills? So first question, can you think of someone that really kind of demonstrated the soft skills that made the difference? And secondly, are there kind of roles that stand out to you that you think those soft skills are even more important? Kathy, you want to start?
Sure. I'm going to start with the second part of the question because it's easier.
Sure, we can do that. We can do anything we want.
I have to warn you, I'm on like 3 hours of sleep last night. I flew in from Seattle last night, and so forgive me. I've been hanging out with 20-somethings in the different time zone, and I'm a little bit tired. So forgive me.
We love you for being here.
No, I'm happy to be here. So yes, absolutely. As you move up the chain, I think soft skills become critical. As a matter of fact, I think having the soft skills help you move up the chain. I think I'm like a case in point to that. As I said, I never really thought of myself as very good at any of the hard skills. The point about harder versus softer too, I think it's so critical, particularly for women. I think as you go, you have to be really aware of the fact that a lot of times women, just because we're women, we're pushed into softer skills. As a matter of fact, that's kind of how I ended up in leadership. As I mentioned, I was a network engineer. I got tapped on the shoulder to be a project management. I went back to try and be a software engineer. I got tapped on the shoulder to be a frontline manager. And a lot of that was, and at some point you're kind of hearing subliminally, oh, maybe I'm really not good at this technical stuff. Maybe this is harder for me. And you see, you're in a room, definitely in a room where you're the only woman a lot of times, and that can be very challenging. And so I think as you learn to meander through that, how do I use my influencing skills? How do I convince my manager that I actually know what I'm doing and I don't need, someone else to tell me what to do? You develop, I would say, two things: resilience, right? And secondly, communication skills to be able to articulate what problem you're trying to solve. So in terms of as you move up the chain, you need more and more of those skills to be able to articulate what problem you're trying to solve, even understanding not just yourself, but understanding who you're talking to. I would say that's when I think of some of the examples, it is. I'll talk about myself in terms of examples, trying to sell a program as a senior director at Liberty to 6 VPs. You kind of had to know, well, this one really cares a lot about the data. So I went in with lots and lots of data. This one really cares a lot about the relationship. So it was talking about how it's going to improve how our experience with the business customers or something like that. And so just really trying to lean into not just yourself and your skills, but recognize that what you're there for, what people want to hear from you is, essentially what, from their lens, and understanding what is of valuable to them. And then doing that, I learned how to tell the same story 4 or 5 different ways. And I think that was, probably the best example I could come up with on 3 hours of sleep. So forgive me.
Oh, it's a great one. Learning how to find the yes, I think we've all worked with people where you're like, I could sell them on the idea, but I have to figure out what actually matters to them.
Yeah. Shaping the story that will convince them that they want to invest in what it is that you're trying to get them.
Deb or Laura, anything else to add?
I'm happy to speak to that. The example is not somebody in tech. The example is somebody in the construction industry, a hard skill, and a woman. And she had started as a carpenter, went all the way up to certainly team lead, supervisor, and now she is a director of project management of a very large construction company, not located in New Hampshire. And her path was really quite challenging. And we chatted a lot about this. And by the way, the company I represent is Dale Carnegie Training. I don't know anyone in the room here about Dale Carnegie. Well, probably the pioneers in terms of professional self-help and people skills. And there's a quote that he said. He said, to be interesting, for people to advocate for you, to people to support you, you need to be interested in others. And it takes a lot of courage to do that because we need to have those conversations. And this person, her first name is Ashley. She is just going gangbusters, and she has marshaled the enthusiasm, the support from everyone, the guidance. She just said, Deb, I used to be a tough person out in the job field, on the job site, and now I'm this approachable person everyone just can't wait to talk to because they believe I'm going to be able to help them accomplish their goals. And so that was really interesting. And she needed permission and time to develop, and that she always had the soft skills, the people skills, the permission and time to actually air those, for people to actually see that, hey, I'm eyeball that heart to heart. I'm a person here. And she learned a great deal about learning more about, and we say a lot about this in our work, learn more about the people behind the job, no matter what they do. And so that was a great example. And it's related to how she is climbing in her career. She could not have done it otherwise. And so she would attribute it to not only being a driven individual, wanting to do her best, absolute best work all the time, but she wanted you to do your best work all the time also, and she always showed up for others.
I think that's such a great point too. And I think a lot of times women, when we see somebody who is confidently self-advocating, and if you're not good at that, and you're like, oh, I want to be better at that, it's kind of like very magnetizing, but that's absolutely a skill, right? Laura, anything to add?
I think another skill just to add on is in the soft world, like being able to mentor and creating that network. And I think men can agree with this too, but even women, we can't do it alone. And that having that network behind you really is powerful, especially if you're in an industry that's male dominated. And so if you have that skill to be able to mentor and to coach and to teach, that goes a long way.
Can I just add to that too? I think it's really important to understand that men are coached for skill and women are coached for behavior. And once you understand that, when you go to your manager or your advocate or your mentor and talk to them about, I really want to grow my career. I really want to be the next software engineer or the next infrastructure person. What do I need to get there? As soon as they start talking about behavior, you have to shift them back to, okay, but I need a curriculum plan. And that's the self-advocacy you need, and you need advocates and mentors to help you get there.
That's a great point.
One more.
All right,
Deb.
Deb. Wait, we're only on question one, Deb. My God.
I know. This is a good question.
You're till 10 o'clock.
Advocacy, self-advocacy can be potentially very dangerous too. So I know, Kathleen, what you're talking about is it's about doing it knowing that you're also serving some other people's benefits. So if I'm only stepping up and advocating, I want this, I deserve this, I should be, then we know we get another name next to our, whatever, a new middle name. I think it starts with B. But men and women alike, the degree to which we go out of the gate advocating for what we want just because we want it is clearly not the emotional, intelligent way. And I know that you would agree with that. So
yeah, excellent. Great job. No, great job. Adaptability is often talked about as one of the number one skills in the workplace that, soft skills in today's workplace that people talk about wanting. I would love to know, what does adaptability look like when it's done well, though, versus when it's not done well? And how can individuals actually strengthen their adaptability? Deb, you want to start?
Go in as a learner. Just start first with saying, I don't have to show up flexing my muscles. I got this. I could do this. By the way, I'm in my whatever decade. I've been around for a while, and I've been very adaptable. And you think about all the opportunities I could have treated something as a threat versus, wait a minute, how can this really help me? So the first thing is show up as a learner, somebody who's humble, somebody who wants to do good for the group, if I'm a member of a group, and just say, how can this help me help others? And so that is what I do personally. And people who've known me for a long time know that there's, whether it's reinvention, I'm still the same person, but it's, wow, what do I need to now bring into my briefcase, my toolkit? Do they even have briefcases anymore? My toolkit, but to say, this is what I need to do. So for me to say, show up like I know something, for you to have confidence in having a conversation with me is just not the way it goes. I need to show up saying, I want to learn from you. And then I will have had somebody saying, wow, I want to support her in learning this. So that's my quick answer.
Yeah, I would double down on that in a way. I think 2 points really. Being adaptable, everything you do, you look at and say, what can I learn from this? And sometimes it's, I've been reorganized. I've had people reorganized, under me, over me, and it just being adaptable means you kind of sometimes take the emotional hit first and go, oh, I wasn't expecting that, and then you lean into it and say, what can I learn from this? Be curious, and I think that's huge. Exactly what Deb said, but more so, I think it builds resilience. So I think earlier on in my career, when these things happened, it was everything I could do at times to hold back tears. I'm like, how did this happen? What did I do wrong that made this happen to me, right? And yet now I feel like toolkit, singing the same song. My toolkit is huge. I have, what can I pull out? And that adaptability has created such a tremendous resilience. And I think that's one of the things I worry the most about with women, with young women in general, with the Gen Z and now Gen Alpha coming up, the younger generations, that they are resilient and that they're adaptable. And I think it's harder today with virtual. How do you build the network? How do you build the communications? How do you build the people that can help you understand why something happened to you or something like that? But yeah, I just think those two to me go together: adaptability and building resilience, and being curious and leaning into these things is absolutely the way to go.
I love that. I totally agree with everything that they were saying. I guess I'll add 2 things that have helped me for my toolkit to become more adaptable. The first one is keeping up to date on technology in my industry, because if technology is going to help a business, chances are that your company or you might want to adapt, you might want to bring that technology in. So if you are aware of what's happening in the industry, then you'll be more ready for the change that's about to happen. And then also being open to criticism. I've seen when adaptability doesn't go well is when someone doesn't like criticism and takes it to heart. If you're open to take someone's advice, then you'll be more open to be adaptable. And it's kind of like, if you don't use it, you lose it. So just keep practicing that mindset of, okay, they're trying to help me. They're not criticizing me. This is going to help me in the future. I found that to be helpful in my toolkit.
Absolutely. The ability to take feedback is such a muscle that has to be built up.
Feedback is a gift. I heard that once and I love it. The good, the bad, the ugly, the more you can hear, what you can change. And it gets back to knowing you could have a great relationship with one person that works one way, and you learn, you build something else in because you get feedback that's contrary to what you think.
Cherry on top, Deb. There we go. Bring on the cherry.
No, I saw this slide today. I'm going to be putting in a presentation I'm conducting next week, similar topic. Just picture this big, the whole screen is showing the 3 dogs, 3 kind of puppy labs, the yellow labs. One is just obediently sitting behind the fence. The other one is sticking its face through like a little bit of the fence. And the third one is like ripping the fence open. And just think about curiosity. Just, I'm going to be part of this. I don't want to be separated from this. And there's this mental shift, this mindset that we have, that we could either say, I'm going to just sit here and kind of, I know this, or I'm going to be I'm going to be a bit more cautious. And others are like gangbusters. So, where do we need to be? But either way, that notion of being adaptable and choosing to learn, it really is up to us to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And seeking feedback.
Absolutely. Yeah. Feedback is not always easy. There's these great places like downtown Portsmouth. We've got the vent room. I don't know if anyone's ever been to the vent room. You can go smash some shit and, paint room, right? Listen to some death metal and stuff and just get it all out. And then you go back to your boss and you say, thank you so much for giving me that piece of feedback yesterday. All right, next question. So while I feel like everyone knows emotional intelligence should enhance performance and collaboration in tech-driven environments, help us understand what that actually looks like in real time. So Laura, I'm going to start with you. Can you share an example of a time where you saw high EQ, right, high emotional intelligence, make the difference in helping a situation go more smoothly, whether it be in communication, teamwork, or conflict resolution?
Okay, one example actually happened pretty recently. We're in a stressful time with one of our projects, and it can get heated in some meetings just because people have different opinions or not heated, but just like there's a little bit of conflict, and conflict can be good because it sparks conversation and some innovation, and someone might say something you wouldn't have thought of, but then in times where it's really stressful, it showed the importance of having high EQ when the project manager was able to take a step back and realize, okay, tensions are starting to rise. Everyone has different emotions in this situation. So what could he do to help bring everyone back down? And so he decided to just take smaller teams from that group to talk individually and then bring the conversation again. He led the conversation to the greater team so that even though there was conflict, everyone was able to speak individually. And so him recognizing that emotion, and it is a hard skill. Like right now talking about it might seem easy. Oh, like he was able just to identify it, but it does take talent to recognize when people are feeling different emotions.
Absolutely. Kathy, any examples?
Sure. I think conflict is critical to build trust. So when you have conflict with someone and you get to the other side, you build trust. There's this book by Peter Lencioni, if you haven't read it, called The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. That's the basis. Those are the two things. You have to have conflict to have trust. You have to have trust to have good team, to have good teamwork. And so for me, I think leaning into conflict and understanding it, and for the best situation I've ever seen is very similar. It's someone who had just brought the temperature down in the team. They were that calming influence. And I remember talking to them afterwards going, boy, that was like chaos in action. And, you handled that so well. And they're like, my head was screaming. Right. So knowing yourself, knowing who's in the room, all those things, but conflict is such a gift. And I used to be told that I avoided conflict. I don't avoid conflict. I really don't. I think it's something you need and all that stuff. And I came to this conclusion that conflict and confrontation are two very different things. To me, conflict is when you disagree and you're happy to go to bat for your position, and you have to get to either a consensus or an agreement or something to agree to disagree, which is a terrible expression. But confrontation is really hard. Like when you have to go to someone and say, I actually don't agree with you, and they're blindsided, being a little dramatic, and so I think just understanding the difference and recognizing the few times when I've had to confront people, it's really hard. Like you have your heart beating in your chest and you're thinking, oh my gosh. And if people embrace feedback, if they're, if they are happy to listen, you end up in a better place. But I would say, don't avoid either one. Neither one of them age well, and you tend to take it on. Women in particular, we take on these things. Our shoulders get high and we get really tight, and we need to go, have a glass of wine or get a massage or something. So,
Find a coach to help you work through your issues of conflict.
I know.
Or wine.
That's
but,
a way better answer. Thank you.
Yeah. I love the point though. And I will say too, I think, and I talk to my clients about this all the time, I think especially as women, I think it's important to look at what is your history with conflict. If this feels particularly hard for you, and there's a lot of friction with that, how did you grow up? Like, do you overfunction naturally and therefore you're overfunctioning and taking on too much in the workplace? I think just as women, sometimes we don't stop all the time to say like, ooh, like my relationship with money, my relationship with authority, my relationship with conflict could actually be the bigger elephant in the room than the actual conflict. So I think sometimes things get exacerbated so quickly, but it's so important to look at that and do that work. Men need to too, let's be honest. But I think women a lot of times take that on naturally. I love that. And actually it tees up into the next question. So Kathy, I'll start with you since you were getting into the trust piece and the building influence. With so much of our communication happening now virtually and across hybrid teams, how many people in the room, raise your hand if you work as part of a hybrid team? Yeah, it's managing from a distance is so difficult. When it comes to this type of communication, what are the biggest challenges and opportunities for building influence and trust across digital platforms?
I wish my kids were here because they could answer this way better than I read this question. I thought it reminded me so much of the pandemic, and everybody was on a level playing field, right? I've been working on hybrid teams almost my entire career, right? We had teams in Belfast, we had teams in Wisconsin, we had teams in Seattle, and in Ireland, sorry, in India. We had blended teams, and we used Link. Remember Link? I know I'm aging myself a little bit, but we had the capability in the platform, but different people were promoted faster if they were local, right? Everyone knew you. They knew who you were. They could see you. They could stop you in the cafeteria. Pandemic level playing field. Everyone was virtual, and we all got the Zoom fatigue, right? And we all, were kind of tired of looking at people in 3D. My kids thrived. So I have 3 sons. They're all in their 20s and early 30s, and they thrived because they knew how to behave digitally. And people are like, I just don't know how this hybrid environment's going to work. How are people going to get promoted? They know how to be digital. And so I have learned from them, and I have learned, we all had to learn during the pandemic, but I think a lot of it is actually very similar. You have to make an effort, even more so digitally. And as managers, we have to support people who are digital, and we have to recognize that even you, when you started this panel, said, we know there are people on the phone, reassuring them, when you ask your questions, we're going to read them out loud. Kelsey said that. So it's having those extra skills to make sure you're inclusive of the hybrid. And as managers or management teams, not just thinking, oh, I see Lauren all the time, therefore, it's recognizing you have teams that are 100% virtual in some cases. And my middle son, he's doing great, and he has not worked in an office since the pandemic. He worked, I think, for 6 months out of college, and then immediately he's been virtual. And he has moved to a place where I'm like, oh, I really hope you get to stay virtual, because it's going to be bad if you can't. It's been around.
Laura, you were just saying before we got started that you're in the office all the time. How has this sort of, like, when you're trying to really build, when we're talking about building influence and trust, we're really talking about building connection with people, right?
Yeah.
How have you seen that play out in your space?
So even though I'm in the office all the time, we have our team in the office, but then we have plants all over the country and all over the world. So we have a lot of digital calls. And something that I'll add on to yours is something that I've seen with the younger generation is that they're not afraid to message. Like, they'll message anytime. They'll just say, like, hi or what's up. And if you think about it, if you're in the office, you go to the bathroom, you'll run into a couple people, you'll say, hi, how are you? You'll spark a conversation, but digitally you can't really do that. But if you just randomly like message someone and just check in on them, that can help with the human connection and the human soft skills that you miss being digital. And then another thing, there's a lot of times where we'll have meetings on the phone, and the leader will say, we're going to give a couple minutes to let everyone join. So it's just 3 minutes of silence. People are probably on their phone or like doing multitasking, something else that they need to do later in the day. But the times where I've seen great connection is when the leader of that meeting will start asking personal questions to fill the time versus just having it go silent. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that really beneficial in the digital world, because you start to learn more about people that you don't run into in the hallways that are across the country versus just being silent.
Yeah. How many people felt like they actually got to know their coworkers better, in a sense, through Zoom background information? I feel like you all know what I mean. Like, there's a child running by, there's a dog running by. You're like, hey, the same breed dog. It's like those little things. Deb, I feel like you must see this all the time with your clients when you're talking to people that must have hybrid teams and that are really struggling to build that connection with their hybrid teams. How do you tackle that?
First off, just yesterday, I facilitated a session. There were all engineers. 5 of them had their video on, and the other 20 did not. So the subtitle here is to generate trust, credibility, and respect, to really think about how we show up. Because no matter what, people are watching us, even if your face isn't even on the screen, or if you're not texting, if you're not responding. I have a nephew that takes 4, I don't know, months to respond to a text. So, and he's only 25. I said, come on, man, I'm texting you. But for professionals, the video is really interesting. So I spoke to them a little bit about what it was we were looking to accomplish, and it's to be more engaged, more empowered, and to be able to create an environment where people feel empowered. They could trust what's going on. And, you're showing up to the meeting and you're not there. So I talk about your show up face, your show up demeanor. What are you going to talk about when you haven't formally begun your meeting? So that trust, credibility, and respect, if you think about this Venn diagram, can you have one really, can you trust you but not respect you? Can I respect you? And it's a really interesting play. So those are the questions that we're actually asking ourselves, or what clients are asking themselves, and we are working on some of those skills to help them develop that, because they are seeing a tremendous void in how they're connecting with their hybrid teams across the country.
Yeah.
Something quick just to add, to look into the camera instead of being sideways or looking down. And it helps everyone else in the call see your face and know, okay, she's engaged or he's engaged.
100%. I feel like in my recruiting days, there were so many times I'd be interviewing someone and the camera's on their other screen and they didn't test it out before. And I'm like, I'm just talking to their sideburns, I'm like, kind of playing off your last answer, Deb, and I'll start with you. How can professionals actually avoid over-relying on technology? Because I think this is something that so many times, especially with management levels and leadership levels, it's like, oh, I've got my phone, I'm connected, call me if you need something. And there's sort of a layer there that gets missed when it comes to really building that connection over time. So how can people really, I guess, avoid that over reliance to ensure that their personality and soft skills still shine through? And this kind of leads to like the visibility bias that we're talking about when it comes to promotion and stuff like that. So what have you seen?
Yeah, the question does have to do with visibility and credibility and maybe audibility. Are they seeing me? Are they hearing me? What are my opportunities? Because all the time that passes between our 2-week interval, let's say we meet every 2 weeks, how many other opportunities have other people had that they initiated, kudos to them, to speak with other people, and chances are they might actually be the next one up in the running for an opportunity. So in terms of equity and opportunity, oftentimes we need to let people know that we're really present, we're really there, and to show that we are not there just for that not that all meetings, even though they're warm and we're engaging, that's a meeting. It was on your schedule, you showed up. What about adding and looking at your map? Look at your calendars right now, actually, and think about all those people on your calendar who are instrumental to you achieving your vision. In fact, think about all the people who are instrumental to you achieving your vision that are not on your calendar. Put them on your calendar, because you're going to see them in a meeting when you're one of 50, one of 20. What are those opportunities? And it's not to play a game. It's just they're going to appreciate you, because remember, to be interesting is to be interested. Continue to show interest in other people.
Love that. Any other advice or insight or experiences of kind of allowing people to, or encouraging people to not over rely on the technology? Have you seen it done well?
I think you said it very well. I don't have anything else to add to that.
All right, perfect. Next question. Okay, so, and again, speaking to like the news and the headlines and everything this morning, especially as we've been seeing, some roles are really starting to be removed from organizations entirely as technology continues to evolve. However, many new jobs are actually being created in this time as well too. So I'm very curious to hear, Kathy, I'll start with you. What are some examples of these new roles that might be emerging for tech professionals? And maybe, especially since we've got some job seekers in here, what are some roles that maybe people should consider looking into now that we have this emergence of maybe new spaces, new functions?
Yeah, so I'll start with just saying it's got to be a hard time to try and find a job right now. Certainly so I have 3 sons. I don't know if I've said that yet or not. I have 3 sons, 2 daughter-in-laws, a girlfriend that I hope is a daughter-in-law in the future. And 5 of them work in technology. And as a mom, I keep my fingers crossed that they stay employed because it's hard. You see jobs, especially in engineering. I thought when my kids all went into engineering, I was like, cool, they're good for a long time. And right now we're in a slump where the engineering field in particular, I think, is really hit hard by what I would call poor planning, right? And what I mean by that is people are investing heavy in AI and they don't necessarily have the long-term vision yet. And so the collateral damage is people in order to free up funding to then invest. And I mean, some companies are doing it well, don't get me wrong, but I think it's just a tough time right now. So I will start by acknowledging that. But I tend to be a pretty optimistic person. And so looking around at AI and not trying to be fearful, but again, trying to lean in. What can I learn from this? What am I curious about? All that. How can this work in my favor? I've read different articles, and there's a few really cool ones out there. I shared one with the panel last week, and they're talking about. So I'll throw some numbers out there. So I have a math degree, and I can't believe I haven't thrown numbers out yet tonight, but they're expecting about 9 million jobs to be lost to AI and about 11 million to be created, right? So in my career, I've been through this so many times. You think about the ATM didn't exist, bank tellers were at risk. Think about big data, think about blockchain, like all these technologies were going to come in and wipe out jobs. Cybersecurity is a great one. When I first started working in cybersecurity, it was called compliance, right? Compliance, risk, governance, and that still exists. But cybersecurity, there was no role that was called security or cybersecurity. And now look today, there's a couple million people. You want a job, get into cybersecurity. You're female, get into cybersecurity. You're going to even have a better chance, in terms of the diversity aspect. AI is going to create jobs. There's no doubt in my mind. They're going to create jobs. The article I sent had some funny jobs, like an AI relationship counselor for those people that fall in love with their AI. They need a counselor. They need a psychiatrist to help them, right? There was a movie about that. I can't remember the name of it. Her. Yeah. Exactly. But there's others. There's auditors. So making sure that the learning models are actually accurate. And to me, I'll kind of wrap up a little bit with know yourself, know what you enjoy, and then start to pursue that in terms of an AI lens. If you think that engineering is interesting, you want to do hardware, there's a ton going on with AI and hardware. If you like auditing, if you're a numbers or a detail-oriented person, start learning about learning models and how you need to validate them. The big thing about AI right now is the hallucinations. Trust is a huge one, especially for a privacy organization like ours. Our members who are in privacy, AI governance, maybe a little bit less in the cyber law, they need to trust that the articles they read from us, the training that they're getting from us, the research that we're doing is accurate. There's going to be a human in the loop. Figure out what excites you and go pursue that. That would be my advice.
Love that. Laura, any other roles that people should think about?
Yeah, AI takes a lot of energy and power. Even there was an article recently that even just saying, hi, how are you to your AI agent or your chatbot takes a ton of energy. So I can foresee in the future there'll probably be roles around sustainability and how you can reduce the energy being used in AI. So if that's intriguing to anyone, you could look into that. And also for the machines that the software is going into, it's not going to be able to last 24 hours, 7 days a week for years and years. So there'll always be maintenance needed on these systems and these machines. So if that's intriguing also, there could be roles opening up in that world.
Great point. Have anything else?
Not so much in the job positions that might open, because I love listening to these two. We chatted last week about that too. The roles that we have now, we're asking the question, if you were in one of those roles, that might be one of those, how many? We could be asking, if I had, let's say I'm an individual contributor, if I had a team with me, what more would I want them to do? How much more value could I contribute to the organization? And the reason I present this question, we talk about this, is because we all also get to say, how can we elevate what it is that we do so we won't need to be as reliant on the machines the way, just to get something done. We can actually get it. I think actually we had Kelsey in the introduction, treat this technology as a partner, as a collaborator. This is a team member. So think about how much more we can get done so we can actually elevate us actually we can retrain how people perceive us and how we think, because we're now taking our role to another completely other level. So that's something that's really key. And then when we get down to but I don't know, I've never seen myself as a leader, then we have that self-talk discussion again. So just to really lean into it. So I would encourage everyone to say, in your current role, if you had another team member or several people working with you, because you're not going to hire more people, let's say, because there's a freeze. But if you could, how could you leverage technology to help that tech do what it is you need to do so you can elevate the work that you focus on?
Yeah.
Can I just add two things? Those numbers I threw out were by like 2030, 2032. So not this year, not losing
Everyone
9 million,
can stop
but
sweating.
It's going to take some time.
Yeah.
And the second thing is just, if you're a leader in the room, you have a team, people are worried about this. This is where the EQ part, this is where the emotional intelligence kicks in. Like, help your team understand. We are in the process of rolling out AI at our organization for internal operational use. We're going slowly. We're very conservative. I mentioned our audience needs to trust us, but our teams are worried. And so being on the front end with your teams to make sure that you are giving them an opportunity to test and learn how it can help them in their role, that actually goes a long way in terms of getting buy-in on the other end.
Definitely. I don't know. Raise your hand if you read the article recently. It talked about a very well-known consulting firm that had a report that they did for a client, and the hallucinations that Kathy is mentioning. What she means by that is in the what is it at the end of a paper? It's like the footnotes. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, the sourcing. And it was like 60% of it was completely falsified, or the source was like a Reddit user. And so this Big Four consulting firm and this project that they did for, I think it was Australia, had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars of fees and accept that they did know that they were using a lot of AI to generate this report and yada, yada. So the fields of AI research are exploding now, AI auditing to that point. So that is a great space to start looking into, because that is going to be needed. That's one of many examples I've heard of. So I know there's a lot of fear around AI specifically right now. We could have an entire panel about that, but just know that there are going to be a lot of these spaces and jobs created just to manage and vet what AI is producing. So,
and Crystal, very briefly, for the people who are managing teams, going into the sensitivity, the emotional intelligence that we must have when we're introducing this, I had a conversation with somebody who was asked to tell the machine how to do their job. And that was the extent to the change management approach. So there is no stakeholder assessment. There is no addressing what it could be. So when I go back to think about what more you could do if you had that machine become your team member, that's the strong connection point. So for the leaders in the room, really have that, slow down a little bit so you can speed up. Don't be the dog that's like maybe ripping through the fence and gets hurt.
go for it.
I just would add to, I think it goes back to be curious, learn what AI can do for your job so you're not surprised. So you can bring it and think about not only how your job could be eliminated if an AI was adopted, but how you can do more with the same. I like to say, instead of do more with less or do the same with less, do more with the same. And that makes a huge difference too. Knowledge is power in this technology world. Knowledge is in all worlds, but particularly with the change. I have been through so many of these hype cycles where in the end, there's always more jobs created than not. And people that lean in and learn and figure out what it's going to do to their job, maybe go, to your manager with some ideas. You don't want to work yourself out of a job. You can be honest about that. Hey, I don't want to work myself out of a job, but I also don't want to be blindsided by losing my job. I'd like to explore how AI can help us. And that's powerful.
Or you may find the gaps of where AI is not able to do your job and it's falsifying information or whatever. And then you come into that conversation with the ammunition and be like, hey, if you thought I was replaceable, let me show you what this just did and how this would be a problem if you actually ran with this. So I think a lot of times when we have that fear around new technology, there's an abandonment. People don't want to adopt or adapt. I think it's really important that you bring it into the fold and actually say, okay, could you really do my job, ChatGPT? Let's figure this out. And like experiment with it. I teach at UNH and it was a huge conversation in higher education last year of like, what are we going to do? They're all going to use AI and ChatGPT to write their papers. And I'm like, let's teach them how to use it wisely then, because this is not going anywhere, right? Let's see where the gaps show up. Our last question, and then we'll get into some questions from the crowd. In one or two sentences, I always try to end panels like this, right? Is there any piece of advice that you'd like to offer our audience members leaving here tonight related to anything that we've talked about? And, you know, not even just for the job seekers, but maybe for folks that are just trying to navigate all of this rapid change, the super disruptive time. Any one piece of advice? Laura, we'll start with you.
Mine would be just that computers can never be empathetic, so never lose that skill.
Nice.
Mine would be that this is just the next thing. Like, know yourself, know what you like, know what you're good at, believe in yourself, lean into learning. But this, like, if you want a job in tech, this is tech. It changes so much. You know, I started on green screens. Now I'm in AI. I've been through blockchain. I've been through big data. I've been through so many of these. Yeah. And I think looking back, it's easy to say you can reinvent yourself over and over. Not that you're reinventing yourself, but we have a career and a lattice. You've heard the lattice versus the ladder, going up, going across. Like, it's all learning, and it's that toolkit. It's that toolkit that will help you, get through the next 40 years or whatever.
Deb, piece of advice?
That being human is not a limitation. It is our advantage. We get to design who we are and our journey of who we're becoming. So just have fun continuing that journey of becoming.
Love that. Thank you so much. All right, let's open it up to you guys. Any questions? Do you have a microphone in case there's, okay. Yeah, sure. Who has a question? This is shocking.
There we go. Nailed it.
Well, oh, that's right. Let's check the online audience. While we're checking that, one thing that I'll throw out there, something I do a lot with my corporate clients, and I go in and a lot of times right now, I know we talked about some of the different generational changes that are happening. This is the first time in our history that we've ever had a 5-generation workforce, right? And I think there's a big miss if you are trying to manage everybody on your team the same way. And I think when we talk about technology adoption, and especially as a manager, when you're knowing that some of your employees are probably stressing out about some of this stuff, remember that the way that you communicate these changes and how you will hope someone will feel, right? Try to not shit on people, right? You shouldn't be worried, or you should be, it's like, don't let people shit on you, right? But at the same time, remember that all of your team members are going to react very differently. And whether it's generational differences or just because people interpret things differently, you don't know what somebody's history is like with layoffs. You don't know what their track record is like, if it's their first time being laid off or their 5th time. So please remember that Lindsay Pollack, this great author, she says, one size fits none. And that's really how we have to look at managing our way through this with our people. So if you have a lot of like high anxiety folks in your organization due to a lot of these changes, try to go with that one-on-one approach. Don't try to broad brush this in a town hall. You're gonna miss a lot of people that way, and it can cause a lot more harm than good. Any questions show up? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
From our online audience, they asked, in this current market, what do you think is the number one most crucial soft skill that candidates can have?
Most crucial.
Well, in a bucket, if we just said emotional intelligence, but under that umbrella, there is so much. But when we get into the the collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, that's what helps us discern what's coming back in our responses from AI generated content, for example. So really leaning into that and communicating, being able to have discourse around differences of opinion, because that's not going to go away. And even if you have a different opinion from the response you get from your prompt, by the way, if you're going to do that, create an agent that's going to give you some tough love. That's not bad for you, so that you can have that conversation.
I think be curious. That would be the one I would say. Like, just be curious, be a learner. You started earlier with this, but I just think there's so much potential of AI. If you think positively and there's something to embrace, you're going to build your toolkit, you're going to build your skill sets, you're going to learn something new. That to me is going to get back to the adaptability and resilience too, because those two sort of went through my brain. But I think curiosity is a big one.
Okay, Laura.
Yeah, I would say collaboration. There's gonna be AI will be able to tell you a lot, but they won't be able to tell you what your workplace culture is like, or a senior level person that's been at the company for 40 years. AI is not going to be able to tell you their history and teach you as much as they might be able to teach you about the company. So collaboration with different people and diversity, I think, is definitely something important to keep for soft skills.
Awesome. Any others?
Yeah, another question. In each of your experiences, what is the best practice for giving feedback that builds trust and growth?
Love that.
Direct, honest, timely, kind.
Okay, there you go.
No, seriously, you don't have to hit someone over the head. You can be kind. Practice before you tell anybody anything. And don't be angry.
And if you know you're not good at giving that feedback, like I said, lean into the coaching, work with your HR business partner. That's literally what they're there to help you with, right?
But give it to them. Like I learned this the hard way, right? 9 months, 10 months, 11 months into a year, when you do that sort of annual review and you're telling someone that they're failing at something. I had someone say to me once, why didn't you tell me 10 months ago when I could have done something about it? And it was just such a hit you square in the, in the shoot. I missed it, right? People want, not everybody takes feedback well, so you got to be kind. But people in general, I think, want to learn and grow, and getting feedback. And if you lead with feedback as a gift.
Go for it.
To add to this, if you are going to give anyone feedback and you're going to coach them, we need to know who we're coaching. We need to know, again, that person behind the job. We need to know what's their vision. So if we can coach to vision, give feedback to vision, and understand that, hey, if the business goals are going in one direction and now we're needing to upshift or modify our approach, if we can align it to a business need also, that might make it a bit simpler for people to understand, okay, I really do need to shift. It's not avoiding the person-centered feedback, because I'm a fan of that, strength-centered as well as constructive. But if it's not aligned with a vision, not only my organization's vision, but their vision, it's just going to fall flat. So we have to make it meaningful to them.
I would add to what I said earlier. If you're a manager in the room, or if you're someone who's getting feedback from your manager, remember, we are, as a society here in the US in particular, programmed to coach men for skills and coach women for behavior. So if you're getting that coaching or you're giving that coaching, think about it holistic. Like, what can I tell you about your skills as well as your behavior?
Love that. Oh, we have a real live question in the audience. Here you go. Not that we don't love our online viewers. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Well, my question is quite timely because Kathleen just hit on the head. A holistic feedback model. Do you think that we could then begin to utilize machine language or machine learning to help to gauge how we, in essence, utilize EQ to train how we accept or reject, if you will, feedback? So is that something that we could now begin to use AI to develop for different scenarios. And now we are able to hone in on those soft skills that we then put into our toolkit as we move in this new digital AI era.
I can speak to that specifically. At Dale Carnegie and all of our training programs, we actually have something called a Dale bot. And it's most of our program has at the foundation interpersonal skills. It's whether it's about the rapport and trust and influence and cooperation, collaboration. And our learners, our clients can actually put in very specific questions. And if they're already in one of our clients, that they could get some of that coaching. Now we've tested it, obviously a lot. It's going on around the world. So can it happen? Is it the way? No, it's not the answer. It is part of receiving some coaching and guidance within the context of what somebody really needs. I think context is very important here. So we are seeing it in our world, and the feedback we're receiving is very positive, but we don't treat that as a sole source of that coaching and feedback.
Yeah, and I think not all platforms are created equal. How many people have heard about ChatGPT being used as a therapist? So there's a lot of regulation now that's being discussed of like, how does it actually elevate when someone's having mental health issues? So I think it's such a good question because I think there's a place for this, but I think it's so important that there are actually designated platforms that have that baseline learning model that knows when to trigger sort of like, hey, maybe it's time to go talk to a human, right?
I like how on like chatbots you can tell it you could type something and say, can you make this more concise, or can you make this sound nicer? So you could vent into ChatGPT and then before you give the feedback, say, can you make it sound nicer? So you could use it that way too.
I have a friend who's a realtor who had to send a really tough email to someone at like a town administration office or something. And she was like, I just went ham on ChatGPT and then said, can you professionalize this? So I think there's definitely uses for it.
Does anybody watch the morning show?
Yes.
You know what happened to Stella, right?
Don't give anything away.
Okay, I'll just leave it at that. Stay tuned.
Any other questions in there? Oh, yeah, great.
So I know that AI is helping all of us in our jobs and it's helping our companies, but are we looking at the impact that it's having on our clients and the negative impact? I'm in tech. I'm also in construction, and it's very sexy in construction right now. And the company I work for, the stakeholders, they want AI. It's an OKR. It's a big deal. And it's kind of starting down at the bottom with the support end. And I can tell you that a foreman on one of my job sites is not going to chat with an AI bot when their tablet's not working and they can't put in their guys for payroll. So have you seen anything where customers or people that you've worked with or your companies are looking at the end user? It's making us look better. We're faster. We're better. We're creating. How is it impacting our client? And could we be losing money because of it?
Mm-hmm.
I'll start. One of the things we're asking teams to do, aside from our general rollout of a chat capability, we have some pilots going on, and we're asking them to quantify what they think it's going to impact. And we're looking across a multitude of, is it going to save us money? Is it going to make us more efficient? Is it going to generate revenue? The flip side of the coin. We're also asking for metrics on employee experience and customer experience, and those are reviewed before they go forward. And so I actually think we're small, we can, right? We're small, so we can, but we are cautiously moving into this by asking upfront, how is this going to improve or affect? And we may miss. I mean, again, we're just getting in there now. We may miss, but just what you described is not knowing your customer, right? It is sort of that back to, it's not just about what I want and how do I get what I want, but what do they need? And Lean teaches us, like I did a whole Lean journey at Liberty. Lean teaches us that the customer's in the center. It won't work. It won't sustain. If it's one person, my dad will never get on board with a mobile phone. He's 85. He's lived a great life. So, but if it's your customers, it won't sustain, and you'll learn from that.
interesting online question.
Sure.
How do you productively confront gatekeeping behavior with your HR partner?
Gatekeeping behavior as in information that you're looking for, and HR says you can't, like what, pay information or something?
I think you hit it right on the head.
Well, we have some great pay transparency laws that have been passing. Massachusetts actually just went into effect this month. So the good thing is that if your HR representative is holding back, you may actually have some rights to that information, depending on where you are. I think that there's a bigger conversation. Help me understand is always like the golden phrase that I kind of share with people. Like, go to your HR business partner and say, like, let's say that you're looking to make a career move and promote up. I would always kind of say, hey, help me understand, like, what does the next step for me in this organization look like? And if they say, oh, well, you're not ready, or, oh, well, we're not sure, or, if you want to know about pay bands or something like that, be like, hey, help me understand, like, where can I get this information? Because I'm trying to advocate for myself, but you're making me feel like I can't go anywhere. I think it's just being curious and like seeking out more information. I don't know if the listener is still listening. If you can provide some context to your question, that's a big question.
Yeah, I think it's a tough balance.
Yeah.
I have so much sympathy for HR professionals. I've never been an HR professional. They sit on the protecting privacy in a privacy organization. And so how do you de-identify that when you only have maybe 3 employees that do that? And do you share a band? Do you share an average? How do you do that? And so, protecting HR data is actually critical. There are rights to that as well. One phenomenon I've seen recently is that this generation, my sons who are in Gen Z, and then the Gen A coming up.
They're the little kids right now.
Oh, they're little kids. Thank you. So
Gen Z is in college right now and out.
Yeah. So Gen Z, I think I've one at the very end of Gen Y, but that probably ages me too. They share with each other. They're telling each other. And that's an HR problem too, because you just share your salary, but you don't share your experience, your exposure, your education. And that can be tough. For women, though, it can also be an advantage. And there's a ton of salary surveys that are done. We just did one actually and shared it that show where the gender bias is, where the jobs are that have money. And actually, if you're exploring jobs and you're thinking about what you love, that's a place to go. So there are plenty of places that you can get. Go to
Glassdoor.com.
Jobs.com. What is the jobs?
Glassdoor?
Salary.com.
Oh,
Salary.com will give you information by region. So, and when you're in a digital world and you have one person in Seattle or north of Seattle and you have another person in upstate New Hampshire, you're going to have the same job in very different salaries. So
different salary variances.
Yeah.
To your point, I mean, I think Gen Z it's a great example. Transparency, our relationship with transparency is so different now. I mean, my college students at UNH will tell you, like, they won't even go eat at the restaurant down the street if it doesn't have 35-star reviews on Yelp. So transparency is just baked into their whole experience, right? They're sharing everything about themselves all the time. I think it's a miss for employers if you try to skirt transparency. You're not going to build trust and credibility with them. And you're going to seem kind of outdated and antiquated with the way that you move through the world and what that experience might be like for them. So I would say it's going to be uncomfortable. And I think this also goes to technology and AI and the why behind why are we rolling things out, right? Like, be transparent in your reasoning because this is a generation that does want to understand the why behind this policy, the why can't you share with me what my colleagues make, things like that. And it's not always coming from a combative place. It's coming from genuinely like a curious place. Laura, do you want to share anything about like your experience as far as like, dealing with HR, growing your career in your organizations, or what's your experience been and what would your advice be to up and comers?
You brought up salary negotiation, something that I always struggled with, but my sister-in-law's mom always mentions is that females always have to negotiate because men do it. So always try and come back with something, even if it's just 5,000 more, always say something extra. And AI could help with that. If you're nervous to negotiate, you could talk with the bot to figure out the best way to approach the hiring manager. And it could give you tips on how to negotiate. how to present yourself, or it could even give you a script on what to say. If you can email or have a video call, you can read off what it's saying to recommend.
You're like rough drafting the conversation with ChatGPT. Yeah.
Actually, expanding on that idea, thank you so much. It led nicely into the next question. What advice would you give to someone who does struggle with self-advocacy and confidence at work?
There's always a reason why that's happening. So there's a question about why someone's struggling. You said it earlier. Everyone's got their story. We don't always know what they are. So for that, if it's the person who's acknowledging, I'm having a challenge, to really find some confidants, find some mentors, find people who really want to lift you up. There are plenty of people who do. And a simple answer is just know that in fact, you could call me. There are plenty of people who would want to really support people in that situation. And to know that is important, and then to acknowledge that whatever your story is or why we're not advocating for ourselves, we can transcend that. We can get above that and learn to tell our story in a way that you actually get excited about it. It's compelling, and people really want to know about that. So not withhold who you are, get out there and let people see it and hear it.
I'd say get into some Brene Brown. You know, the story I'm telling myself is, right? The story I'm telling myself if I self-advocate is that they're going to think this or whatever. But I would just say, don't ask, don't get. You gotta start somewhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd ask why. Like, what are you struggling with? Is it that you're intimidated by your manager, that you don't, like I, for years, thought, I don't know this stuff because I heard that subliminal message all the time that girls can't do this, boys can, or women can't do this, men can. I think this newer generation, it doesn't necessarily have that as much. Maybe I'm wrong. But why? And when you understand what it is, if it's just I'm not comfortable speaking, is it the conflict? Is it the confrontation? Are you feeling like it's confrontation to go and chat with your boss about a different role or an opportunity? But it's like it doesn't get better. You're only kind of hurting yourself. You're in your head and you're bringing yourself down the more you sort of think about it over and over. And so I think, getting a coach or an ally that just says every time we're on the same project, I love working with you. Like, get someone that you can practice with and help. But your boss should want you to be successful. If they don't, you have a bad boss. Your team should want you to be successful. And so think, if you get out of your own head and think, they want me to be successful, they want me to be happy, they want me to have a good experience here, and sort of think about the fact that that is what you're going into versus they're going to tell me I'm wrong or I'm not good or what. So it's like, it kind of, for me, gets back to the why. What are you worried about? What is it that you think your boss or whatever is going to tell you, and get beyond that? Practice that. If they say that, practice what you would answer.
Right. Very briefly, one story, there was a team presentation. It was in the construction industry, and the estimator was on the call talking to the owner, the person who's going to write the check. And apparently she was not presenting something to the satisfactory of the rest of the team. And actually what happens, they muted her. It was a virtual meeting. They physically muted her. And so I was leading a program. It was a high impact presenting program, some leadership influence and presence. And she started having panic attacks. So you get back to the why, like something happened to her. And she began to believe that her organization did not want her to succeed. So I think it's also important to know, yes, why. Most often people do want to see you succeed, and recognize when there might be an opportunity for you to treat yourself better and find a place where you can truly soar. Laura?
Yeah, something just to add. This might not be the best advice, but I struggle a lot with confidence, especially like speaking up in meetings. But something I always try and remember is that you're there because you deserve to be there, and you're there for a reason. And actually, my mom got me this bracelet that says, remember who the F you are. So anytime I need a boost of
Good
confidence,
mom right there.
I look at this, and like I wore it today because I knew I was going to be nervous. So just like something small like that to help you helps me.
I love that.
I love that, Laura. As a new
Yeah.
mom, I want to know where she got that bracelet.
Yeah, I think it was an Instagram ad. It's probably the algorithm from AI feeding it there.
Great. I think we have time for one final question. Any in-house questions? Otherwise, I do have a last online. No? Okay. Oh,
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. So, I've been in the workforce for over 30 something years. I'm a lot older than I may look. However, I've often heard that you
That
should.
is true. You can't see her in the back.
Yeah.
That is really true.
Thank you. You're so kind. So I've often heard that you show up as one person, but then when you go out the door, you take the other person that you really are. So from what I'm understanding as women in technology, having learned all these soft skills or honing in on the soft skills that we need to succeed, especially in this digital change, how do we be ourselves? I mean, Market Street Talent is very versed on empowering women to be who they are on the job and off the job. How do we really truly be ourselves on the job without being called the adjective that begins with the alphabet letter? How do we actually become who we know we are on the job, in opposed to being two different people on the job and off the job, and still maintain your true identity?
Great question.
I
Laura?
love that question. I think a lot of it can be finding the right company or the right people to work with, because it does get exhausting if during the day you're someone that you're not truly yourself. And it does take time to find a role that you feel comfortable in and people that you like to work with, because sometimes it's just a matter of fact that someone doesn't like your personality, and that's their problem, not yours. So you have to find a team that appreciates your talent and the personality that you have.
I would say if you lead with who you are sometimes. So I mentioned I have a math degree. I have a process brain. And when there's a lot of, I'll call it idea chaos in a room, I will sit back and be quiet. That's my true self. But over the years, I've been told, oh, you don't speak up enough or whatever. So I've learned to say and lead with a statement that says, I have a process brain. Like I need to process this. So go to the next person or whatever. And so whatever your true self is, if you share that up front, people actually give you the space to then come back with, like, I love building on ideas sometimes more than generating them. And so when Crystal says, Kathy, we're going to start with you, I'm like, oh, darn it.
I'm giving you the heads up so you can process and think about it.
A minute. But yeah, like I said, like find your sentence or two that helps you in different scenarios that allows you to lead with, like, this may sound aggressive, and I've been told I have a face that looks skeptical, for example, right? There's a guy at work, and people who are in the room know, who says to me, you're scowling all the time. I'm like, I'm actually not. That's my face.
I'm thinking.
Processing. And so I've learned, and I will say that I know you see this, but it's not that I'm, thinking, being critical on that. I think you're a jerk. It's that I'm just trying to absorb it. So I think it gets back to knowing yourself and knowing who's in the room, because sometimes you can get away with that, frankly, and sometimes you can't. But yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Go for it. When you are feeling like you are not yourself, or when we're feeling like we're not ourselves, to listen to ourselves and say, wait a minute, Deb, I'm not being myself. But if I've got the skills to convey what I'm feeling or what's going on, really being an observer of process communication, what's happening, to learn about the skills to be candid. That doesn't mean you're disrespectful. And it could be such a light bulb going off for other people that oftentimes, someone just, you ask a question and no one answers it and somebody else starts talking. That's a process, a communication issue. But if you're being your honest self, you say, man, I just didn't really handle that too well. Wait, before we go on to Peter's question, can we finish with this one? And just exercising a little bit of courage, and you'll find you'll land on your feet. Yeah, I think kind of to Laura's point too, sometimes I might say to people too, like, I might just not be your cup of tea. And that is so fine because I'm not trying to be all things to all people. But I think to your point, there's a really big difference between showing up with your whole self and showing up with your authentic self. And I think there are parts of us that we deserve to keep reserved for ourselves. I always kind of say to my clients, like, you are the sum of all of your parts. You have a lot of really awesome parts. You don't have to bring all of them to work, especially if you feel like some of those are going to be criticized or change how people view you and the personal brand that you're trying to build. So I think there's a lot of intention behind it. But also, just to say too, I think like women of color, this is a whole different conversation. When we're talking about code switching, when we're talking about being in certain environments where we feel like there's a huge part of our authentic self we can't show up with, that is a whole other conversation, to the point made of like, maybe this isn't the right environment because it's not just about being, you know, invited to the dance. It's about being asked to dance and be a part of the organization and feel like you really belong there and that you feel safe enough to even bring more of those parts to work. So yeah, don't stay at some place at your own expense, for sure. How are we doing?
That's
We're
good. I think we're time to wrap up.
Thank
and
you
I
so
would love
much.
to give a huge round of applause for Crystal, Deb, Kathleen, and Laura. Ladies, thank you so much for bringing your authentic self to tonight's discussion. I think everyone is walking away with some really great advice. So we appreciate everything and all the time you did to be here. Before we go, we would love to grab the box, and we're going to pull out 2 names for gift cards to local Portsmouth businesses. And thank you all for joining too. We know it's a big commitment to devote a whole Tuesday night, so we really appreciate you supporting Market Street and supporting these wonderful women here. I don't want to pull it. You pull it. You like me cheating. So we have Karen Brigger. Ooh. Karen, awesome. And we have Sarah Bright. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, everyone, so much. Please use the rest of the time for networking. You don't have to rush out by any means. And again, we appreciate everyone joining us here tonight. Have a good night.
That's been my line.
I know.
Like they're slipping off the chair.